Welcome to another Pop Dissected Podcast, everybody. Today, we're going to be having a little history lesson that's going to be learning about where the word stan originated from, and then talk about how this subculture on Twitter primarily has expanded within the last few years. Generally speaking, the word stan, plural stans, is used to describe an individual or group of people who avidly support an artist, usually to a very fervent and zealous extent. As we continue, let me know down in the comments who you stan and what fanbases you belong to. It only takes a few clicks on Twitter to see stans in their natural habitat. You have some people who can be so violently in support of an artist, their behavior and language can be morally questionable at best. Before Stan rose in popularity, oh god. Before Stan rose in popularity within the last 5 years or so, those who supported artists were simply referred to as fans, and they belonged to fan bases. We still use those terms, but stan, which is a noun and now a verb apparently, is more commonplace. Stan is primarily used within the circle of the entertainment industry, mainly within music and particularly with female singers. So it may be a shock to know the word stan and its usage came from rap icon Eminem, from his song bearing the exact same name. The song was released as a single in November of 2000, off Eminem's second studio album, the Marshall Mathers LP, which was released earlier that year in May. I'll say it outright, this song is a trip. Bearing a home in Bearing a home in the horrorcore, hardcore hip-hop genre, Stan tells the story of the eponymous character trying to reach out to Eminem, sharing how the rapper has inspired him. As the track progresses, Stan gets angrier and more passionate. After Eminem fails to get back to Stan in a timely manner, Stan is so consumed with rage. Oh god, I can't believe this is what I'm talking about. After Eminem fails to get back to Stan in a timely manner, Stan is consumed with bitter rage. Following brutal intoxication, he kidnaps his pregnant girlfriend, tying her up in his trunk and driving it off a bridge. The final verse has Eminem writing back to Stan. He shares how he heard about someone who drove themselves off a bridge with their girlfriend in the trunk, and he realizes it was Stan. A shockaroony, I know. I distinctly remember hearing this song for the very first time, probably when I was 8 or 9. Mind you, at this point in my life, I was listening to the Hannah Montana soundtrack and musicals like Seussical Jr., since I was doing theater at the time, so I was horrified when I first heard this song. I thought it was obscene, offensive, disgusting, and just dreadful. I'm sure that may be true for a lot of people who first begin listening to Eminem's music. However, many years later, I found this song to be very well crafted. It's very visual, very well written, and has sampling from Dido's song, Thank You. Bottom line, it's one of the greats of hip-hop and just music in general. The term stan was added to the Oxford Dictionary very recently, actually, just proving the greater impact that Eminem had on the word, but also its prevalence and usage throughout these niche subcultures online. What I find to be interesting is this word originated from a hip-hop song, and has circulated within that genre of music from other rappers, and over time it found its place within Twitter to create an entire community. While we can't necessarily say this word alone birthed Stan Twitter, I can imagine it greatly propelled it. How an artist like Eminem inadvertently created this massive hub for people to have a relatable space of connection is pretty wild. When we think about the subject matter within the song Stan itself, it's almost ironic in a way that the very intense dedication and behavior displayed by the titular character is present among Stan Twitter. Those within the realm of Stan Twitter have likely seen time and time again some pretty outlandish and downright offensive behavior from these self-proclaimed superfans and their pursuit to show their dedication to their favorite artist. I was actually scrolling through a relatively new chart account last night for a pretty small artist who has a big song out right now. A, B, D, C, E, F, G, H. I don't want to try and read this chart account's life or make assumptions. However, what I witnessed from their tweets and language was utter nonsense. The quest to defame another artist in order to lift yours up has always been present, But with social media, it's so much more viral and brutal. I honestly find it embarrassing at times how people act online. It doesn't matter if you're behind a screen. There's someone who is actively thinking out the words they're going to type and send into the world for others to consume. The amount of instances people go on to send death threats, threaten others, or just outright rude is beyond me. Think about the artist or person that you're in support of. Would they want their fans to mass bully someone else because, what, they spoke one critical word or had an opinion you don't agree with? The logic is frankly nonsensical. And that also begs the question, is it the fan base's responsibility to monitor that behavior, or should the artists themselves call them out? It's interesting to think about. Why stans can be insistent on relentless bullying when their idol is even minorly critiqued or someone has a harsh opinion is beyond me. Demi Lovato said it best: get a job and stay away from her. I can't really wrap my head around someone who sits on their keyboard all day waiting to go into a battle that no one really cares about except such a niche subset of individuals. And that's one thing I've realized on Stan Twitter. The issues presented there can be largely superficial and have no real-world impact or bearings at all. I used to think everyone knew about everything I talked about on Twitter, until I realized they don't, and the masses do not care that much. Of course, there are legitimate causes to address and want to champion for or against, but most of the time it's petty squabbles that are so irrelevant it makes no sense someone dedicates all their energy into it. Recently, Taylor Swift was called out by someone who said she doesn't write her own songs. She does, but it was a pretty ignorant comment. However, I felt the response from fans and the media was obnoxious. I get the need to want to defend her after what happened in 2016 and 2017, but she's a grown adult who defended herself and offered a rebuttal. I do recognize women have to fight twice as hard within the music industry, and Taylor has been fighting a lot throughout her career, in the public eye and behind the scenes, and she's a lot more vocal about issues presented against her and other women. However, I felt the response was very melodramatic, and the insane coverage it got was so beyond me. I think about artists who really get the shit end of the stick and are treated far worse and have much more severe issues than someone saying they don't write their own songs. Where is the rallied support behind those artists? For example, Britney's conservatorship. She's living her life and calling out her sister, which is awesome, but people had no issue saying she was crazy and strung out on drugs before now. Just as an example, I think people really switch sides on the internet and have the most mismanaged priorities. But then again, it begs the question, does all of this really matter? And do we need to be that involved in celebrities' lives? I believe much of what goes on in Stan Twitter is in Stan Twitter and doesn't leave that subculture. I realized this very quickly back in 2017-18 when I went to the front lines for Katy Perry and had people asking me what the hell I was upset about. Now, Stan Twitter is a great place for people to connect, find friends, share their interests and hobbies, and find communities where they can belong. I think that's wonderful. However, some offer such toxicity that is so ridiculous. You have to wonder if these people have real priorities. But there is a distinction between actual harmful behavior and just simple trolling. So with that, did you know where Stan originated from? What behavior from Stans have you seen that is just ridiculous? And is there a particular fandom that radiates those negative vibes all the time? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to help support this channel. Last and certainly not least, I'd like to shout out my wonderful channel members, Skyhawker, Daniel Barron, Steven, and David Vaz Mediano. If you want to really help dictate what type of content is put out on this channel, receive exclusive chat and comment badges, and get a shout out, then I'd love for you to join my channel membership. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see y'all next time.